When you think of the first smartphone, you probably think of the iPhone. But what if I told you that more than a decade before Steve Jobs walked on stage in 2007, the idea of a smartphone already existed? Touchscreens, apps, mobile internet, even games. All of that was around long before the iPhone. The problem? Most of those devices were clunky, expensive, and way ahead of their time. Today, we are going back to explore the forgotten history of smartphones before the iPhone changed everything. Our story begins in 1994 when IBM introduced a device called the Simon Personal Communicator. It was massive by today's standards, about the size of a brick, but it was revolutionary. Simon wasn't just a phone, it had a monochrome touchscreen, could send and receive email and faxes, and even had apps like a calendar, address book, and calculator. In other words, the basic blueprint of modern smartphones was already here. The downside, it was extremely expensive, had terrible battery life, and only sold about 50,000 units. Simon showed the world what was possible, but the world just wasn't ready yet. While IBM's experiment didn't take off, the concept of a portable digital assistant gained traction. In the mid-90s, companies like Palm and Psion created PDAs, small handheld computers that let you manage contacts, take notes, and even sync with your desktop computer. Palm became the leader with devices like the Palm Pilot, which were popular with professionals. At this point, these weren't really phones, but they planted the seed. A pocket computer that could manage your digital life. The real breakthrough would come when phone features and PDA features started merging into one, and no one took that merge more seriously than Nokia. By the late 90s, Nokia was already dominating the mobile phone market with its durable and reliable devices. But for professionals, they created something more ambitious, the Nokia Communicator series. These devices looked like thick phones that could flip open into mini laptops, complete with a keyboard and widescreen. The first communicator, released in 1996, allowed email, web browsing, and even document editing, things that sound futuristic at the time. By the early 2000s, Nokia was on the top of the mobile world. With their Symbian operating system, they controlled more than 40% of the global phone market. For many, Nokia was the definition of mobile technology. While Nokia dominated consumer phones, a Canadian company called Research in Motion, better known as BlackBerry, took over the business world. The first BlackBerry devices in the late 90s focused on secure email. They had small screens and physical QWERTY keyboards that made typing easy compared to the old numeric keypads. By the early 2000s, BlackBerry became the ultimate business tool. CEOs, politicians, and professionals couldn't live without it. Even US presidents carried BlackBerry devices. People were so addicted that the term crackberry was born. At its peak, BlackBerry held over 20% of the global smartphone market and was considered unstoppable. Meanwhile, Palm wasn't sitting still. After dominating PDAs, they moved into smartphones with the Palm Treo. The Treo combined Palm's PDA features with a mobile phone. It had a touchscreen, apps, and internet access, making it feel like a true handheld computer. Palm's devices became popular among tech enthusiasts and early adopters, but they struggled to keep up as competition grew. Then, there was Microsoft. In the early 2000s, they launched Windows Mobile, a smartphone operating system designed to feel like a miniature version of Windows. These devices were often made by companies like HTC and Samsung, and they came with touchscreens, styluses, and small keyboards. Windows Mobile was powerful for its time, supporting multitasking and apps, but it was clunky and not very user-friendly. For businesses, it was fine. For everyday customers, it felt complicated. During this era, dozens of other companies experimented with smartphones. Siemens, Ericsson, and even Motorola had early models that mixed phone and PDA features. Some were flip phones with extra screens, others had detachable keyboards. Most of these devices failed to gain mass adoption because they were too expensive, too big, or simply too confusing for regular users. But all of these experiments were building the foundation of the smartphone. By 2006, just a year before the iPhone, the smartphone market was crowded but fragmented. Nokia Symbian phones dominated globally, especially in Europe and Asia. BlackBerry was the king of businesses. Palm still had its loyal fan base. Windows Mobile powered a wide range of devices. But here is the problem. None of these phones were designed for the average person. They were packed with features, but complicated to use. They require styluses, keyboards, or confusing menus. Customers wanted something simpler, more intuitive, and more fun. And that's where Apple came in. In 2007, Steve Jobs unveiled the iPhone, a sleek, all-touch device with no physical keyboard, a simple interface, and a focus on apps and multimedia. Apple didn't invent the smartphone, but they reinvented it for everyone, not just business users or tech geeks. The iPhone marked the shift from smartphones being a niche tool to becoming a mass market necessity. So, the next time someone says the iPhone was the first smartphone, you'll know the truth. The journey started with the IBM Simon in 1992, grew with PDAs like Palm, matured with Nokia and BlackBerry, and stable with Microsoft's Windows Mobile. All of these players paved the way for what was coming. The iPhone wasn't the first smartphone, but it was the one that redefined what a smartphone should be.